Hey everybody, I'm going to start this a little bit early, give people time to actually connect. So we passed the bill through the Senate. We still have to wait for it to go through the House. We'll start with that. Uh, I don't agree with everything in the bill, but it does need to go through. First of all, let's talk about the unemployment expansion and provisions. I am actually in favor of that. Anyone who is on unemployment knows that, at least in Indiana, because that's what I have to go on, I know the laws here in Indiana, the maximum benefit is about $390 a week. Now, that sounds good when you're completely broke, but $390 a week unemployment is generally far less than what you're getting when you're working. Anyone saying they incentivize unemployment is just ridiculous. That's obviously someone who has never had to collect unemployment and doesn't understand it. The $600 a week bonus to unemployment, I believe, should be a lot more than a temporary issue. The unemployment, the way it is now, there is not enough money to live on. It's just that simple. Uh, we need we need to work on our unemployment insurance. This is we pay in this with our taxes. The companies pay into it. It's something that needs to be improved. This is a good step towards that. I believe that the limits are vastly outdated. If you take someone making, heck, even $10 an hour, 40 hours a week, that's $400 for taxes. You know, people making much more than that are they have bills that go along with it. They generally have, and let's face it, in any of our large cities, rent, mortgages, all of that are astronomical. You add in a car payment, you add in insurance, which you have to have, you add all this stuff in, and that's not enough money. So let me start with that. Other provisions that have been added to it, of course, we have millions and millions of dollars going to stuff that has nothing to do with this epidemic, nothing to do, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. It's got nothing to do with people being out of work now. We're sending money to the different foundations, and Nadler wants $4 billion from museums. Get out of here with that. Nobody cares about that right now. And these museums are generally have multi-billion dollar, at least multi-million dollar endowments. There are people that take care of these museums, and people on the boards are worth millions of dollars. They'll be fine. Trust me. Uh, so I am absolutely thrilled that they were able to get the bill passed. Again, I'm not in favor of everything on it. There's a lot of port on it that is going to various places. I think that there should be loans guaranteed to various industries that are affected by this. But we let's not hand out money to corporations and just give them money. That's ridiculous. I am against just handing money out to corporations. I don't care what they use it for. Loans, absolutely. Let's save these companies so we can save these jobs. I'm all about saving the jobs. But again, they shouldn't be able to do stock buybacks. They shouldn't be able to give their CEOs any bonuses or increase their salary. Come on, we're talking about that right now? Seriously? Uh, that's just ridiculous. Again, there's a lot of things that I don't agree with. I don't agree with the pork. I do agree that people need help. There are many people out there that are out of work right now, that are on very reduced hours or have been laid off. They need assistance. They need assistance a lot more than these big corporations that should have put some money back. You know, I'm going to talk today about being raised by a single mom. My mom wasn't perfect; she was far from it. But one thing that I do know is she loved her children. Uh, I wasn't the only child, even though at the time I was raised by my mother. I was. I actually had an older brother. His name was Paul. He died when he was 9 and I was 5. He had neuroblastoma, and it was actually misdiagnosed as leukemia. But I didn't really know him. Like I said, I was 5 years old. Uh, But I grew up as an only child with my mother, Linda. She was a single mom. My dad, they got divorced shortly after my parents got married, and then got divorced shortly after I was born. They just didn't get along. My dad was an alcoholic. He had his own issues. My mom had her issues. I have a lot of crazy stories about my parents, which I'll share at another time. But being raised by my mom, she tried her best. She was mentally ill. She had some uh, some problems with substance abuse, but she she always put her she always put me first. She always gave me the big bedroom. She always gave me the bigger television. I was very, very spoiled as a kid, and that kind of led into a kind of a breakdown when I became a teen, because a lot of things suddenly changed as a teenager. I suddenly wasn't spoiled anymore and had to grow up and face the real world. Uh, it One thing it did, being raised by a single mom, is it made me more sensitive than I believe I would have normally. Now, the downside is I didn't have a full time dad in my life. My uncle Andrew, as I said on the previous video, he was far more of a father to me than my biological father, Floyd. But I wasn't around him full time. There were gaps when it was just myself and my mother, and I didn't get that one on one dad attention that I believe kids really need. Just like you need your mom in your life, you need your dad in your life. That had various effects on me. One thing is, like I said, it makes me more sensitive, but it also made it to where I wasn't sure how to be a dad when I had kids. I did have some guidance from my uncle Andrew, but for the most part, I was kind of lost. I didn't know what dads were supposed to do. I knew that dads were supposed to provide for their family. I knew that they were supposed to take care of their kids and protect them and guard them. But I didn't have that much insight as to the everyday interactions that you're supposed to do as a father. I didn't know about that one-on-one connection, the one where you encourage your child and you play up the superhero aspect, because let's face it, to a kid your dad is your everything. Mom is wonderful, and especially for boys, there's this special bond with your mom that nobody can replace. But with dads, it's more of a, my dad's awesome and he can beat up your dad, especially as a little kid. I didn't know how to translate that. I didn't know how to show that to my kids. I had to kind of learn on the fly, and I did to a degree. Took me a few tries. I'll admit that I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. Uh, Now with the three boys that I have, there's always room for improvement. Everybody can always do more, right? You can always do better. Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining. Uh, you can always do a better job. Nobody's perfect, but I look at it as, what could be the best thing that I could teach my child. So that's kind of what I've tried to rely on. Is, yeah, you get the school teachings and reading, writing, arithmetic, but I think a dad's real job is to teach their children morals. It's to teach them how life really works. It's to teach them to be a good person. And luckily, my mom was able to fill in on some of those. But it's also, I believe, also really important for a dad to have their child feel secure, to feel safe, to feel secure, and to really learn, because there's this degree of trust with a dad, right? There's, dad will take care of me. Anything dad says is kind of gospel-y. And I think that you have to be very careful as a father to not abuse that, to teach your children reality, to teach your children, okay, this is a good thing, but if you do this, it can easily be a bad thing, especially as far as uh, with the craziness in the world and the hyper partisanship of the media, for example. You have to be really careful because a lot of these kids, they bring their parents' views to school, right? So let's say a parent is absolutely convinced because of MSNBC that Trump is a racist and a raging evil individual. And so a kid will go to school, and just because they're white, they're a racist. Or they happen to wear an American flag on their shirt. Oh, you must be a nationalist, a white nationalist. There's just too much of that now. And unfortunately, now I will say Indiana is far better than some other locations. I have seen some videos and I've heard some stories that are just absolutely heartbreaking of uh, teachers just outright telling people that their political views. Let's just leave it at that. The teachers absolutely say, "Oh, this is gospel and this is the truth." I think it's really important for us as parents to make children understand that they don't have to worry about that yet, especially early teens, late teens. Okay, you kind of start needing to think about a little bit of politics. I saw a TikTok video the other day. I think it was yesterday that the wife was playing, and it was this song, and the guy was talking about how he wasn't taught how to vote in school. He was taught, geometry and uh, history and all this stuff, but he wasn't taught how to vote. He wasn't taught how to balance a checkbook. He wasn't taught finances and how to play the stock market and how to invest and how to prepare for your future. We aren't taught any of that. We're taught we're taught how to be drones. We're taught how to be factory workers and office minions. That's what we're taught. That's what we're taught. We're not taught real life skills. We're not taught how to start a business. We're not taught how to pursue skills outside of prepping you for college and things like that. It's sad. It really is. Our educational system is off track. It's off track from where it should be. I believe that there's a lot of things that kids need to be taught. And part of the problem comes in is that, remember, the educational system was designed with the nuclear family in mind. When it was first set up, all these things, the home taught people, your parents taught you how to balance your checkbook, how to vote, how to uh, research proper anything. And a lot of people don't come from a nuclear family anymore. Divorces, the rate is skyrocketing. Single parent households are astronomical. And the government has incentivized that to a high degree. That's something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about how the government has incentivized single mothers. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about how if you're married, you can't get into public housing. But a single woman with a child who the parent doesn't live there, they can get into public housing. They can get assistance. Uh, and let me be clear, I am for public assistance when used properly. There are people that absolutely need help. There are elderly and disabled and people that are temporarily down on their luck. That's what the system is there for. It's there to teach people how to get back on their feet. There are amazing programs in place that will pay for your school, that will give you food stamps, SNAP, allow you to get back on your feet. But there are obviously, with everything, there are people that are going to abuse it. Anytime you have any kind of system, there are those that are going to abuse it. I know that there are many people that think, oh, we shouldn't provide any assistance at all. And I understand that. They see it as a kind of a slippery slope towards socialism. Let me just say that we spend trillions of dollars on our taxes. We pay into this government, and I have been there. I have been in that situation where I lost my job and I don't know what I'm going to do. And how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to eat? That's what those programs are there for. That's what unemployment is there for. That's what the food stamps are there for. That's what Medicaid is there for. I've been on it, and it helped. It got me back on my feet. I was able to get out, get another job, and get off of all the programs. It does its job if utilized properly. Um, Another back to what I was talking about before about being a single parent. I was actually a single parent for a period of time with my middle son, and you don't realize how difficult, truly difficult it is to juggle a full time job, childcare, uh, teaching the child, feeding the child. It wow, like wow. My hat's off to all of the women and men because there are plenty of single fathers. They don't get the press that the single mothers do. That's a subject for another video. But there are plenty of single fathers out there, just like there are plenty of fathers that are fighting for custody that truly love their kids and are great providers. But the system is geared towards the mother, and we can debate whether that's fair or not. It's geared towards the mother because the mother was seen as more important in a child's life than the father. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that heartily. I believe that both parents are equally as valuable and equally as necessary to a child's development, growth, and personality. Nature versus nurture, you hear that. I I have seen people who grow up in loving relationships who were off. I mean, there was something about them. Just like I've seen people grow up in single parent households who have gone on to do great and wonderful things. Your childhood doesn't determine your future, but it can certainly stack the deck for you or against you. If you have a nuclear family, mom and dad at home, it tends to give you a better solid footing. Now, let me clarify. If your parents have issues, if they're constantly fighting, if they're throwing things at each other, if they're substance abuse problems or mental illness, then obviously it's not a healthy environment. Doesn't matter whether there's one parent or two parents. But if you have a healthy nuclear family, I think it gives you a leg up. I think it helps in establishing the boundaries of life and the rules of life and what it really means. Uh, Again, I've seen it. The statistics bear it out. People are far more likely to commit crimes, to be on public assistance, to not go to college. If they come from a single parent household, and it's tragic. It is, especially when we have our government that pushes that incentivizes the single parent household, the single mom, for assistance purposes. And the other thing that I have a real problem with is where the cutoff is. Let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about food stamps and SNAP and public assistance. If you ever actually go into it and look at where the cutoff is, first of all, it's a hard cutoff. It's a line, right? It's a straight line. It's not a sliding scale. It's a straight line. So if you make $1 more than what you're supposed to, right? You're completely off. Now, does that $1 mean the difference between eating and not eating? It does with SNAP. It does with Medicaid. It's not a sliding scale. I would like to see a sliding scale introduced where if you make X amount, you start getting reduced benefits up to here, and then you're off. I think that would go a long way towards helping those people that are just starting to get on their feet. The interesting thing, and people have complained about it verbally before, they've made big deals about it, but lawmakers don't listen, is we have a system that is set up pass or fail. It's a pass or fail system for public assistance. A lot of times they don't take extraneous factors into consideration. They don't take additional things into account. The other thing is these caseworkers and the people that work at the office, very rarely do they completely explain what all you can do with the program, how you can benefit from it. A lot of times there's options for, like I said, childcare, uh, going to college, getting things paid for. It's simply sign here, okay, you get this. I'd like to see more education on that. Just like I think it should be a requirement to go through some basic life courses if you're going to collect public assistance. I think you should be taught how to pay your bills, how to balance a checkbook, how to go to a job interview, how to fill out a job application. Some of that is required. Let me be clear, there are different rules for different states. Indiana does require some of that for some assistance programs. But I'd like to see it expanded. I'd like to see more education given for those on assistance. Here's what you can do. Okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to be this? Do you want to do that? Here's how you can go about doing that. Here are the programs that are in place for you. I don't think that enough time or attention is spent on that as should be. I'd like to see just overall more practical education opportunities. I would like to see shop classes return. I would like to see auto shop return to our high schools. All these things have been removed, and a go to college, go to college, go to college agenda has been seriously pushed down our throats. And a lot of that was from our parents who didn't want us to work in the same way that they did. They thought that, going to work in a white collar type environment was more important or better somehow than working in a blue collar environment. The boomer generation really kind of pushed that down and said, hey, you should strive to be a white collar worker, or you should strive to go to college. And I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's at all right. If anybody here has seen the show Dirty Jobs, Mike is awesome. Mike Rowe, I love him. It shows that a lot of times the jobs that people are doing, the dirty jobs as it were, are not only more rewarding at the end of the day, but many times you're actually creating something or doing something with your life rather than, again, an office drone sitting at a computer clicking through. You're working with your hands, you're getting out, you're doing things. This isn't pushed in our schools. It's, oh, do you want to do this? Okay, well, here, you can go to for example, in Michigan City, it's called the A.K. Smith Career Center. And they do have some programs, but you have to really, really look into it. Sorry, I missed the comments here. Paul, yeah, exactly. No, they don't. It's either this or nothing, he says. Yeah, when you're signing up for services, there's a line. And if you make $1 more, you're cut off. You get nothing. A lot of times this leads to people not being completely truthful. If the scale was fixed, if we could show, have people do some math. How far do you really think, let's take, okay, if you make more than $200 a week, how far do you think $200 a week goes? Really? The other thing that Paul said is indoctrinated socialism. Yeah. If you actually do the research on it, these universities and colleges, 90% of the professors donate to Democrat or progressive political campaigns and causes. 10% donate to conservative or Republican causes. That's concerning to me. Over 75% of college professors identify as a progressive/liberal, and less than 25% identify as a conservative or Republican. Now, my issue with this is if college professors could teach classes without A, indoctrinating their students, and B, pushing their political beliefs down on people, it wouldn't matter. But unfortunately, we're seeing that they are unable to do that. Free speech has been under fire on college campuses for quite some time. We see that they don't want conservative speakers to come to their college. They will use any tactic that they can. And look, you can believe whatever you want. That's the beauty of this country. It's one of the reasons why I love this country with all my heart. But when you won't allow someone else to speak, when you won't listen to the ideas that someone else has, how is that any different than fascism? How is that any different than attacking free speech? You can say, oh, I believe in free speech, but that's hate speech. You either believe in free speech or you don't. Believing in free speech means believing in someone's ability to offend you. And I believe we have the right to offend others. I absolutely believe that. If someone gets offended, whose fault is that? Whose problem is that? Is that, let's say I say, you're a jerk, right? And you get offended. Whose problem is that really? Is that my problem because I said something that offended you? Or is it your problem because you got offended and you have to learn how to deal with that? Coddling, far too much coddling, and it comes from participation trophies. I worked at a maximum security prison. I heard insults that I had to look up. You cannot have a thin skin and be offended and work at a prison. It's not going to work. I have seen ridiculous things. I have seen disgusting things, but I have been called every name in the book. And it doesn't matter what you look like or how you sound or how you carry yourself or any of that. It doesn't matter because they are looking for a reaction. The people, they're bored. Think about it. They have nothing but time on their hands, right? They make weapons out of soap. I mean, socks. They make weapons out of stuff I didn't know you could make weapons out of. Paper. They make weapons, knives, and cutting tools out of wet paper that is hardened and sharpened. You wouldn't. It's amazing. So they need something to break up the boredom. They want to get a reaction. They want to offend you. And if you are offended by someone calling you names or not being accepting of your thoughts and ideas, then I highly recommend you don't go to work at a prison. You are going to have a really, really hard time if names offend you. The other thing about working at a prison that I learned is everybody, all of us are connected, right? We're all part of the same system. The outside of the bars, the inside of the bars, we're all part of the same thing. We all generally want the same things. We just have different ideas of how to go about it. The people on the inside of the bars believe that they had the right to go and generally take something from someone else, whether it's their property or their life or whatever. And the people on the outside of the bars believe you should maintain the law, that we need a law-abiding society in order to function. But ultimately, it comes down to we all want to be safe. We all want to be secure. We all want a decent job that'll take care of us. It's interesting. I'm going to talk just for a minute about why I believe that the left continues to push this offended agenda, right? This hate speech is evil agenda. One of the things that we need to, hi, Chris, glad you could join us. One of the things that I've seen over and over and over is cancel white people. Have you guys seen that? It was trending on Twitter for a very long time. Cancel white people. Now, as a white person, I'm not offended by that. They absolutely have the right to say that. They can say whatever they want, just like I can say whatever I want. What I find interesting is the very people that are pushing that are the same people that get so incredibly offended by what they term as hate speech, which is perhaps like Ben Shapiro believing that marriage is between a man and a woman. Oh my goodness. Or I believe that life begins at conception, and so I am not in favor of abortion. I'm just not. Oh, I am against their existence, right? Give me a break. Okay. No one is trying to cancel your existence. No one is trying to say you shouldn't exist. Anyone can exist. I may not agree with what you say. I may not agree with your beliefs, but you have the right to say whatever you want. That's the foundation of this country. How are we supposed to fix things if we can't talk about them? How are we supposed to get to the bottom of the real issues that are in this country unless we can discuss them and say, hey, I have a problem with you doing this. I have a problem with you doing that. How are we able to fix it? We can't. We can't, not without free speech. That's what it was designed for. It was designed so that the citizens of the United States could go to their elected officials, they could gather in a group and say, hey, we demand change, right? It's the right to assemble. But more importantly, the right to criticize. That's like you should be able to criticize the current administration, for example, without being labeled as anti Trump. You should be able to say, I agree with this, but I think a mistake was made here. Just like you should be able to disagree with this person or this person without being labeled. All these labels floating around. Uh, I think I think we're starting to make progress on that, though. I really do. The media has done a bang up job at portraying America as at each other's throats. But the interesting thing is, every time I see one of these polls, right now, the ones run by the massive media, the mainstream media, those always come out, oh, the country's so divided. The country's so divided. But when you run your own poll and outside your little sounding board. You actually send it out and you have people who are on the other side forward it around these Twitter polls and Facebook polls that I've seen. We actually agree on a heck of a lot more than the media would have you believe. We are far less divided and far less hated than the media would portray it. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that there's going to be massive numbers for the 2020 election. I believe that Donald Trump will get reelected. I don't think there's anything that anyone can do to stop that, even if they wanted to, which I don't. I fully intend on voting for Donald Trump in 2020. Put that out there. He, I think, has done more for America than any other president, at least in my memory, since I've been alive. I was a big fan of Reagan. Ronald Reagan was an amazing president. I think that he tried to do what he could. He got embroiled in that Iran Contra affair thing, and that was on the news all the time. But for the most part, Ronald Reagan had us in mind. He had the regular people in mind. I think Trump's the same way. I think that he's done some things I don't agree with. If he'd just get off of Twitter, he's said some things that I really don't agree with. But overall, I'm so glad we didn't have Clinton as a president right now. Holy crap! Can you imagine what that psycho would have done? Uh, just wow. I think that he keeps America moving. And let's not forget. Let's not forget. This man said we need to close our borders. We need to have borders. We need to bring our factories home. We can't be having all these countries, producing stuff that we need. Trump said that. He said we need to put America first. He said we need to stop getting all these people coming through that are illegal. We need to focus on America. We need to protect our steel industries. He said all these things and he acted on them. And guess what? Oh, he was right. Oh my God. I know some people are going to have a heart attack, but he was right. All of these things are absolutely critical to a functioning nation. To a functioning nation. We need to have these things back at home. Why is a vast majority of our medications and our especially prescription medications made in China? Why? And the companies are guilty. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the government is completely responsible for this, but the government did make it very, very appealing for these companies to go overseas and have workers doing it. I would agree, Paul. I would agree. Paul said he still has a corporate-like agenda, and I will agree with that. That's one of the things that I'm very clear about. I don't agree that these companies should be coddled. We're not allowing the free market to be free. We are actually incentivizing companies to fail in some ways. We are making it to where these companies can pour money back into buybacks, right? And then don't worry about it. The government's going to take care of you. I didn't agree with it under Obama. I don't agree with it under Donald Trump. He does tend to have corporate interests at heart far more than I would like. I'm going to be very clear on that. Now, there are those people who will say, oh, if you take care of the corporations, right, you keep them running, they're going to provide jobs. And that's true to a degree, But at what point should our tax dollars be used to bail these companies out, to just hand them money? Here you go. It's okay that you bought stock. It's okay that you didn't save any money. It's okay that you pay your CEO $40 plus million a year while you're paying your workers $12 an hour. That's okay. No, it's not okay. I am as business friendly as you can get, right? I believe that massive red tape and regulation should be done away with. I believe that we should make it easier, especially for small businesses. But let me be very clear. Corporations have far too much power. They have too much money and too much power. And the fact that they are treated as entities, which means they have rights, yeah, negative, Ghost Rider. The pattern is full. We are not going down that. That needs to change. Corporations should not have nearly the rights that human beings do, and in many cases, they have more. If you really get into it, it's a deep rabbit hole, and I've already gone on for a long time this video. But I think I'm going to do a video about how protected corporations are and how many rights they have. Just to kind of wrap it up, I'm going to say that I plan on doing these every day. I am going to tell you on Saturday, Saturday the 28th, I am going to be on the Gun Guys show at, I believe it's 6 p.m. Eastern time, so 5 p.m. our time. The Gun Guy in Indianapolis, Guy Relford, awesome show. If you aren't listening to it, you should. Great show. I'm going to be on that show, his radio show, and it does have a podcast, so you can listen to it from anywhere. It's called The Gun Guy. Highly recommend you look it up. 5 p.m. our time on Saturday. I'm going to do it remotely. I had every intention of going down there and hanging out with them, chatting, being in the studio, better audio, better everything. But obviously with the social distancing and the COVID, we've decided that remotely was probably the smartest idea. He's been doing everybody remotely. Hopefully after this is over, maybe we can do a second one. I look forward to doing it. Let's see if we have any comments that I missed. Some of these aren't coming up sometimes, so I apologize for that. I try to go back through after I'm done and see if any other videos any other comments pop up, and I try to get to them. Sometimes they're just not showing up for me. It's an issue with Facebook. If anyone thinks that maybe this would be better on another platform other than Facebook, like Twitter or something else, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. I'm trying to get some software that's going to allow me to live stream to all the different ones at the same time. Sorry. Uh, I just washed my hands. Don't freak out. If you have any ideas, I'd love to hear it. 93 WIBC. Yeah. Yeah. Gun Guy's awesome. If anyone has, like I said, if anyone has any ideas about a better platform, if you think it would work better than Facebook, I'd be willing to hear it. Just leave a comment, message me directly, whatever. I check my messages all the time, so there's that. One thing that I want to say before we go is treat treat your kids like you wanted to be treated. That's I guess the whole message from having an absentee father is really think about the things you wish your dad had done for you and with you, and do that. Think about what it would have done for you. Think about how your life would have changed if, especially for those guys out there who maybe grew up without a dad. Think about what you wish your dad would have done, and especially for us sometimes that don't have a lot of time, uh, running a campaign and trying to get my name out there. A lot of times I'm very busy. I got this place to go, and before all this, especially this place to go, and then this, and then this, and then don't get home until late at night. And the disappointment on your child's face when they want to do something with you and you can't, remember that. Remember that. Don't just push that down. Remember that, because you can use that. You can think about that and use that to be better, to spend more time with them, to get more involved. Even if it's just them telling you about their favorite video game or book that they're reading, you may not understand it. You might not, that's like my son. He used to tell me all the time about Minecraft. He would go on for hours about Minecraft and building this and doing that, and how the creepers did this, and I'm not a big Minecraft fan. I looked at it, I tried to play it. I'm like, if I wanted to play 8-bit graphics, I'd go back and play Mario, right? But he loves it. So you just got to take the time to listen. A lot of times that'll go much, much farther than you think. And don't just hold your phone while you're sitting there listening. I heard, let me cover this real quick. Put the phone down. Put the phone down. Don't just put it in your lap. Set it off to the side. Don't just hold it down like this in your hand. Put it down. Focus on your child, or your wife, or your husband, or whoever you're talking to. Give them your undivided attention, because human contact, is far more important than this technology. It's far more important than those likes on Facebook. It's far more important than your retweets or whatever that stuff is. It's far more important than the TikTok video you're watching. It'll all be there when you're done. It'll still be there. The internet's still there. It's not going anywhere, guys. Put the phone down and focus on your kids. So that's what I have to say. I really appreciate you coming out and hanging out with me tonight. I will be doing another one at 7 p.m. tomorrow. I will see you then. I hope everybody has a good night. God bless you, and God bless the USA.